Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 21, where I try to select what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next couple of game weeks. And we're going into a pretty interesting part of the FPL schedule now, where there are going to be some double game weeks, there are going to be some blank game weeks, and there's going to be a lot of team planning necessary, but we're still quite a bit removed from that, so we still have plenty of enough time to do transfers to get in the requisite players that we need for the blanks and doubles. There's also a lot of things that are going to change with the actual schedule the next week or two. So before Game Week 22, we probably have a clear image of what's going to happen with the doubles and blanks. So I don't really think that I have to take that too much into account to this wildcard draft, but I have taken it some way into account at least, because I know some teams that are going to blank and some teams that are likely going to double as well. So keep that in mind for the weekly wildcard draft. If you're new to this channel or this concept, basically this is where I do a weekly wildcard draft, as it says in the title. I do a wildcard draft each and every game week where I try to select the best team. And I do it in a different style where I go from 1 through 15. And the first pick that I'm going to present to you is the player that I think is the most essential player to have in Premier League, in FPL, even Fantasy Premier League currently. And then the 15th player is the player that I'm the most unsure about having in my squad, but who still made the cut. So yeah, I'm going to talk about 15 players at least, probably a bit more, a couple of alternatives, a couple of players that have dropped out as well. So in total, I'm going to talk about a lot of players that are kind of at the forefront of most FPL squads currently, or at least in the thinking of most FPL squads currently. But yeah, let's just go straight into it with the first pick, and that is the same as last week. That is Cole Palmer, and this is coming off of his 18-point performance against Luton. Another fantastic performance where he scored a lot of points without a single penalty. He's proven now that he is he's definitely worth the price of 5.6 that he's worth now. Even more so, he probably would have been worth the price even at 2 million, maybe even 3 million more. He's just really consistent. He's on penalties still, as we assume, and Nkunku is now injured as well, so he's probably even more secured on penalties. And yeah, Palmer's just a really good player on a really good attacking team, at least in Chelsea, even though they are really inconsistent. And yeah, he's just performing each and every week now, and is looking like a better and better pick each week. So he's a no-brainer. I think he's just going to stay in the squad for the entirety of the season, basically. He's probably going to stay in around the top 4 picks each draft, each and every week, I think, going forward. So yeah, he's pretty much a no-brainer. If you don't have him already in your team, get him now. I think he's the most essential player to have. He plays Fulham at home in the next game week as well. Decent game week to bring him in regardless. So Palmer, he's also a captaincy option in this week. I don't think I'm going to captain him personally, but I think there's a good case to be made for him to be the captain, especially seeing as he plays in the first fixture of the game week as well. So you don't have to worry about the game getting postponed or someone getting injured or something happening, which you have to worry a little bit more about when it comes to the games later on in the game week, because this is a really elongated game week, I guess, where we have 2 weeks of play. The matches are really spread out. So yeah, it's nice to have a player that's going to play guaranteed this game week. And potentially even as captain for Palmer. But yeah, Palmer in general, just a great pick. Don't really have to talk much more about him because we all know how valuable he is at this current moment in time. Number 2, we are going with another really popular pick at the moment, and that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was my 7th pick last week when I actually did my wildcard myself, because I saved my first wildcard all the way up until Game Week 20. So this past, as you can see, the Game Week 20 draft that I'm presenting to over me here from last week, that is the wildcard draft that I actually went with myself in Game Week 20. So there have been a couple of changes that we're going to talk about, but yeah. A couple of other changes, not in terms of the team, but in terms of my thoughts, is how I value the players. Because last week, or when I did the wildcard drafts at the 30th of December 2023, I wasn't 100% sure about Trent going forward, and I'm still not completely sold just because of the fixtures with Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away. But with the double game week, probably in Game Week 25, the Game Week 24 fixture against Burnley, just a lot of the amount of money we have available now with both Salah and Son leaving for our Asian Cup and African Cup of Nations, it just makes all the sense in the world to have Trent still in your team, and he's still providing a lot of value in terms of expected goals and expected assists and stuff. His underlying numbers are really good, and yeah, he's just a really good premium player to have currently. And with the lack of premium players currently, it just makes a lot of sense to have Trent currently in your team, especially with the double game weeks in mind. But there is a case to be made to sell him in Game Week 26 when Liverpool most likely get a blank game week. But yeah, we'll deal with that when we come to that game week, which is pretty far into the future still. So yeah, Trent still a really good pick, and I'm just pretty sold on him in general because yeah, I think Liverpool has some really good fixtures, especially with the double game week. Or Game 24, Game 25 are going to be really nice for Liverpool assets, and Trent is basically the best Liverpool asset currently with Salah gone from the game for a couple game weeks now. Next up, number 3, we have Alfie Watkins, another pretty template pick who basically lives up to the template standard. There's a reason why he's template. He's just so consistent and has really decent matches as well. Everton away, Newcastle at home. Like, not the best fixtures, but not the worst either. Everton have shown that they can lose quite a lot in games, and I think Aston Villa usually beat Everton as well. So I think Watkins is a decent shout there. At home to Newcastle. Newcastle have been really poor, especially away from home lately. So I think Watkins has a decent chance there as well. And Sheffield United is easy, and Man United at home as well is also a pretty easy fixture, even though they lost to Man United just recently. But they did score 2 goals against Man United still. So yeah, Watkins, great fixtures. Just basically so consistent, and there's no real reason to worry about Watkins going forward either. He is quite expensive though, so you could potentially sell him in the future, but just the fixtures long term as well are really good, even beyond the 4 game weeks that you see here. They have really decent fixtures, so yeah, I think Watkins is a pretty nice player to have, at least until most people will use their actual wildcard in game week 30, 31 just about. But if you're using a wildcard now in Game Week 21, then you don't have a wildcard for the rest of the season, so you have to keep that in mind a little bit as well. But I think Watkins is just a safe pick regardless at this current moment in time. Number 4, we actually have a quite controversial pick, even though he is sort of getting more template now, and that is Phil Foden. I'm just sold on Foden now in general. I brought him in on my wildcard last week, and he scored 12 points for me. He's just playing his best football now, and I think we waited for so long for Foden to like finally have that breakout and just be like that main guy for Man City. And I feel like this is the year. This is finally the year where Pep Roulette is not going to affect him. I just feel like he is such a valued member of the squad now. He's one of the more senior members of the squad as well, with Mahrez and Gundogan and those guys leaving in the preseason. So I think Foden is just too important for Pep to bench. I think he's going to play alongside Kevin De Bruyne, even when Kevin De Bruyne is back. I think Alvarez is the one who's more likely to drop out. And I think Foden also gets priority over the likes of Doku and Grealish and those guys offensively as well. So I think Foden is going to be pretty nailed when it comes to minutes. That's always a risk to say that when it comes to Pep and Pep Roulette. But I think now is just the time. He's been biding his time for so long to become like the main guy for City, basically. And apart from Holland, obviously, but I think now is the time for Foden. I think the time is now for him. Like I said, he's going to take the reins for City. As you can see, really good fixtures as well. Even the away fixture to Newcastle, which has historically been a tough fixture. Currently, Newcastle are struggling mightily, even though they beat Sunderland in the cup. They are still struggling now, and I still think that's a good fixture for Man City. And basically any fixture is good for Man City, and that's why I have Foden quite highly as well, because we know how good Man City can be, and especially now, January onwards, we know usually that's when City go into full gear, and they are just amazing. And I think Foden's going to be pretty nailed. He's going to be pretty attacking. He's scoring goals left and right now. Really nice finishes in general in most games. Even in the cup, he's scoring goals. I just think Foden is a really good pick. So I think if you're looking for a replacement for the likes of Salah and Son, and you already have Palmer, and you don't have Foden, I think personally Foden is the main priority for you to get in midfield. I just think he's going to be really good. But saying that, I said that last season as well, around game week 13, when I used my own first wildcard. He looked like he was really good. He had gotten a lot of good scores from like game week 8 onwards. It looked like he was pretty much nailed to play for City. And then I wildcarded him in alongside most people who brought him in at that point, and he was just benched from that point onwards throughout most of the season. So there is some risk with Foden, but I think this is finally the time for Foden to step up and be that guy for Man City and get away from the Pep Roulette thing that is affecting basically anyone not named Holland, Rodri, or Kevin De Bruyne or Ederson in the past. So yeah, I think Foden is going to be a great pick, and that's my case for Foden. Number 5, we have Purvis Estepinian. He's back and he's fabulous. He gets points every game week. He got a clean sheet against West Ham. It was really close to getting bonus 2 points as well and getting 8 points from that game week. He scored the game week prior. He scored now again in the cup. Really nice goal once again. Can't really replicate the goals, I guess, because he has gotten 2 goals from like 0.04 XG or something like that. But It just proves that he's still quite attacking. He's been playing more sort of like a centre-back lately for Brighton, but that has also helped Brighton shore up their defense a bit and be more defensively secure. So maybe there are some clean sheet points coming. Maybe there are some attacking points coming. I just think Estepinian is just really good value in general, especially with the fixtures that Brighton have. I think Brighton is a team that you can definitely try to target as players you want to bring in, as it's going to be shown with this with Wildcard draft, because there is another Brighton player coming up in this draft. But I think Estepinian, just for the price, 4.9, really cheap. He was underpriced at the start of the season at 5.0. Now they have great fixtures. They're going to get a lot of rest now, and that's been the issue with Brighton in later times. They haven't gotten that much rest. They're going to get a lot of players back pretty soon as well. It seems like most players are back on track, apart from Ansu Fati and some other guy that I'm forgetting. Even Enciso's going to come back. Maybe he's going to be an option at some point. That's going to be interesting to see. But Estepinian seems like one of the more nailed players from Brighton as well. Super attacking, could get some clean sheet points potentially. I think Brighton defensively are better than what we give them credit for, but they did only get recently, now against West Ham, get their first clean sheet of the season. But they've been close several times this season, and like I said at the start of the season, when I kept picking Estepinian in these weekly Wildcard draft videos, he's just a bomb, ticking bomb who's going to explode at some point and get like those 18, 15, 20 pointers that he has proven that he can get. Last year, for example, he had the game against Arsenal where he had a goal and an assist and clean sheet and got 18 points. That was against Arsenal in the title hunt. So yeah, I think Estepinian is just another fantastic pick. So I really like Foden and Estepinian. And they just come right in behind the three most template picks, basically, in Trent, Palmer, and Watkins. Number 6, we have Alfie Doughty. He's another player who's gaining a lot of traction and popularity lately, and for good reason. As you can see from the fixtures, really good fixtures, especially on the bookends there with Burnley in Game Week 21 and then Sheffield United in Game Week 24. So yeah, he's a pretty cheap player. He has a lot of attacking potential, got 2 assists against Chelsea. Luton can keep a clean sheet sometimes, I guess, and especially against Burnley and Sheffield United. I think they have a chance at least to keep a clean sheet. So I think Doughty is just like a cheap player who has good fixtures, potentially a double game week fixture in Game Week 25 as well, but it should be noted that he probably is going to blank in Game Week 26 as well, so maybe that puts you off Doughty a little bit, but he's going to get that double fixture in Game Week 25 anyway, so yeah, I think Doughty is just a really nice pick to have. Set piece taker for Luton. Really cheap as well, so it doesn't really cost you that much. It could cost you that one player playing in that game week in Game Week 26, but most likely other people are going to have the likes of like Taylor for Burnley and Branthwaite for Everton and those types of guys playing instead, and that's not going to gain you that many points compared to Doughty having a double game week in 25 and then having a blank in 26. So I don't think the blank in 26 matters that much, and potentially you could have a starting 11 apart from that, even though we have Palmer and a couple other players in this squad that are most likely going to blank in Game Week 26. But yeah, I think Doughty is apart from that blank in 26, it's just a really easy option because he's so cheap and really good attacking wise as well. So he's a really nice pick as well. Number 7, we have another midfielder who is going to be slightly more controversial, I guess. Diogo Jota. I just think that he is basically what makes Liverpool tick currently without Salah. Once again, now in this past fixture against Arsenal in the cup, in the FA Cup, he came on and once again basically helped Liverpool secure that final goal that got them through. He just keeps on coming on into games and changing games for the better and getting assists and goals. There is some issues maybe with playing time potentially, but I think he's going to be playing quite a lot going forward. It's just he's just recently back from injury, so they've sort of been matching him slowly, but I think he showed out against Arsenal as well that he is pretty important for Liverpool. I think he's going to play in the absence of Salah and potentially even beyond that when Salah comes back as well. So I think he could be a really nice double game week 25 option if Liverpool get a double game week in 25. 24, they have Burnley as well. The fixtures is the only thing. Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away. Not the easiest fixtures, especially the away fixtures where Liverpool aren't that good. I think Chelsea at home, they could do pretty well because yeah, they are pretty good at Anfield and Chelsea have been pretty weak defensively. But I think also Jota is someone that can haul in pretty much any game. Liverpool is a team that can beat any team as well, even 3-0 or 4-0. And Jota, if you give him like 4 game weeks worth of play, he's going to get like a 10-pointer in one of them. It feels like he's one of those guys. If he gets playing time, he's going to score. And currently, I think he is very needed for Liverpool. He's going to be involved. He's probably going to start most games, probably going to be benched at some games potentially. But But yeah, I think he's just a really good pick in general, and I really like his upside. I think he could potentially explode. If he plays every game for Liverpool, he could be their main attacking asset, I think, in the absence of Salah. Probably not going to be on penalties because they have a lot of good penalty takers like McAllister. Darwin has actually a really good penalty record as well. And Szoboszlai is a good penalty taker as well. So he's not going to be on penalties. He's not going to be on set pieces, but he's like the most lethal player Liverpool have offensively. So yeah, really like Diogo Jota in general. Just a big fan of him as a player. Always has been. I always have been a big fan of Jota, even back in his Wolverhampton days. Even before he became like a major FPL option, I said that he was going to be a fantastic pick going forward. And yeah, just really like Jota. I think the upside is just too high for him to not be included in his wildcard squad. So he's in there. Number 8, we have a goalkeeper, and that is Dubravka. I think a lot of people are sort of undermining Dubravka. I see people with other wildcard suggestions where they don't have him. And yes, Newcastle have been really bad defensively, but I think they're going to be pretty good defensively eventually this season. They have the track record as being a good defense the last 2 seasons. And I don't think they have lost that magic, basically. It's just that they've been really tired. Their squad has been stretched too thin. They've had too many competitions. They played in the Champions League, they played in the Cups and all that stuff. Now they're out of every single cup apart from the FA Cup. And they don't have that many fixtures in the Premier League as well to contend with. So yes, he has 2 really poor fixtures now, but that's where the other goalkeeper comes in that I'm going to talk about pretty soon. I might actually talk about it straight away because he's the 9th pick. That is Alphonse Areola. He has 2 decent fixtures against Sheffield United away and Bournemouth at home, where Dubravka doesn't need to play. And then after that, Dubravka can step back in and play. I think Dubravka and Areola is just the best goalkeeper combination to have, because I think both players could get a lot of points. You're probably going to bench some points at some point as well. But as you saw from this past game week, Dubravka got 8 points, playing really well against Liverpool despite conceding 4 goals, saving a penalty as well. And then Areola stepped in and got even more points as the starter. So I just like this goalkeeper combination the best, and I'm pretty set on this goalkeeper combination. It's really cheap, 2 players playing for potentially really good teams as well, even though Newcastle have struggled defensively lately, and West Ham have struggled defensively earlier in the season, but I just think these 2 guys are the best goalkeepers to have currently. And I think most people who have been wildcarded and have just basically defaulted into these 2 players have been pretty lucky to get those players. Because I think most people, if they actually had a wildcard now, I think a lot of people will go with someone else, like potentially David Raya, or Emi Martinez was a popular pick a couple game weeks back. He hasn't really proven to be worth the price of admission either. So yeah, I think people are lucky to have Dubravka and Areola and shouldn't really sleep on how good they are as a pairing, at least, because they have really nice mix of fixtures. They're really cheap, which is going to be pretty important going forward as well. Trying to get back Salah and Son, especially eventually in our teams, along with Holland in our squads. It's just nice to basically pay the lowest possible amount for goalkeepers. You could go with Turner instead of one of them and just start basically Dubravka or Areola for the entirety of the season. We've seen that with Areola, especially. He's the 2nd highest scoring goalkeeper so far in the season, behind Alisson only. So the best possible solution at the start of the season was probably just to pick Areola and Turner and just start Areola every single week. Maybe that is the best case currently. Maybe Areola should be higher than Dubravka, but I just like Newcastle's potential defensively more than West Ham's for the entirety of the season. And Dubravka is most likely going to be the goalkeeper for Newcastle. The transfer window is open now, and it doesn't seem like Newcastle are going to go for a new goalkeeper. So I think Dubravka is pretty safe in a spot as the number 1. And Areola we've seen as well. Fabianski came in, got a clean sheet, but Areola still got his place back and now has been playing really well the last few game weeks. So yeah, I think these 2 goalkeepers are underrated and should be included in your wildcard squad, basically. Number 10, we have Bukayo Saka, who has also has kind of faltered lately, hasn't gotten that many points. But in terms of underlying numbers, he's actually taken a step up now. And Arsenal as well, posting a lot of good underlying numbers, but they just can't seem to win matches currently. They are just in a funk in terms of scoring goals and stuff. That might change. Maybe they do some signings in January offensively. That's going to help Saka and those guys score more points. But I think just the underlying stats and also the next 2 fixtures just basically goes in the way of Saka as like a decent player to have. He's also a nice bridge to have while we wait for Salah to come back from African Cup of Nations. I think it's going to be pretty easy to go from Saka to Salah if that is the case. If we need Salah back for game week 24, especially against Burnley, and 25, which is probably going to be a double game week for Liverpool. Saka is a nice player to sell at that point when he plays Liverpool and then West Ham away, which is 2 tough fixtures. So he's a nice bridge to have for Salah. And I think he can score quite a lot of points against Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. There's also a case to be made for him to be the captain against Crystal Palace, but Saka hasn't been the most explosive player this season, so maybe not, especially with Arsenal's current form. But there's a case to be made for him to be captain this week, and that means that he should be a pretty good pick, especially for the next 2 game weeks. So yeah, Saka stays in for now. He's number 10 for a reason. He's dropped down quite a bit in the rankings. He's actually taken a step up from last week, but yeah, he's not like that important player to have, but he's also a really safe option because most people have him. We know he's going to play a lot of minutes. He's going to be on penalties. So yeah, I think it's just a safe option to have, especially for the next 2 game weeks where he has pretty easy fixtures. But after that, let's see if he's still on the wildcard team by that point in game week 23 and 24 and beyond, especially. But for now, he stays in the team. Number 11, we have Joao Pedro up front, and I think he's actually going to be playing quite a lot going forward. It was a really interesting quote from De Zerbi this past week about Joao Pedro, because he basically admitted that Joao Pedro was sort of like a board signing. It wasn't De Zerbi who pushed for Joao Pedro to be signed. It was basically the board, because they just had a lot of faith in Joao Pedro. And now it seems like De Zerbi is finally trusting him as well. There were some issues at the start of the season with Joao Pedro getting like not that much playing time, but he already proved as well that he can score a lot of goals and be a really important player. He's also on penalties for Brighton, which is kind of huge for them. They've been getting a lot of penalties, especially in the Europa League. So I think he, as the primary penalty taker, he's going to get a lot of points as well. And I think the playing time is going to be really nice going forward. They do have some players coming back from injury within the next like 3 or 4 weeks, or especially in the next 3 or 4 game weeks. But I think he's just a pretty settled player in their squad right now. And as I argued at the start of the season, I was really high on Joao Pedro before the start of the season. He's pretty versatile as well. He can play as a striker, he can play as the number 10, he can play out wide. And I think he's going to play quite a lot going forward. And Brighton have really easy fixtures, and he's a pretty cheap price at only 5.3. So I think that's important to have that extra money. So I have actually made a sacrifice in the front line just to have more money to spend when we need Holland, Salah, Trent, all those guys around game 24, 25. We need to save money somewhere, and I think Joao Pedro is a fantastic way to do that at one of the forward positions. But that means one of the forward has to drop out as well from the template, which I'm going to get to. Number 12, we have Gabriel Magalhaes, and he was number 4 last week. He's just dropping in my whole overall view. I think Arsenal in general are sort of not looking as good currently. They are still, like I said, posting good underlying stats. Even defensively as well, they should be getting a lot more clean sheets, but I think they have like 2 clean sheets in the last 10 games or something. Really bad. Gabriel scored a goal in one of those game weeks against Liverpool, which I was lucky enough to get in FPL. I didn't mention that week. But yeah, I like Gabriel in general. He's a nail player for Arsenal, which is supposed to be one of the best defensive teams in the league at least. And he also has a decent goal. He also has a decent goal threat. But I'm currently just like, I don't know, a bit more negative towards Arsenal. Some other issues that I'm not going to talk about in this video either when it comes to Arsenal. But yeah, I like Gabriel as a pick, obviously, but I just don't really trust Arsenal that much. But I trust him enough to have him for now. It's sort of like Saka. He's a nice like holdover person. Maybe there's like a really good City asset in defense. Kind of like Walker. I did consider Walker as a guy over Gabriel this week. I still think it's too early to like jump on a City defender because a lot of things can happen with City. I'd like to have that third City spot open for the potential double game week and stuff going forward. But there's a case to be made for you to have Walker or someone like that in defense over Gabriel. But for now, the next 2 fixtures at least, Crystal Palace at home, Nottingham Forest away, I'm going to keep Gabriel. But after that, more looking into potentially selling him. So we'll see how long he lasts in this wildcard draft for the next few game weeks as well. Number 13, we have Malo Gusto. I had kind of a conundrum between a couple of 4.2 million defenders, Gusto or Branthwaite, who is the one that has dropped out for Doughty this week. I was in between either dropping Gusto or Branthwaite because I think Branthwaite long-term is the better pick, but I also think Gusto just has like higher potential, the higher point value potential. He's proven that he can get assists. He got an assist in the cup as well, so he's a pretty attacking fullback, and if he just starts every game for Chelsea for the foreseeable future with Reece James out for a couple of months still, I just think that's too good value to pass up on, especially seeing as Chelsea score a lot of goals and he's involved offensively. I just think he has higher upside than Branthwaite, but I do think Branthwaite is sort of like the better long-term pick. He's the safer long-term pick. He has like decent fixtures every now and then, but I think Gusto just his potential is just higher. So I've gone with Gusto. Still unsure about him, but he's also really cheap. I really like the cheap price point for that final defender. So yeah, it is pretty much between Gusto and Branthwaite for that final spot, but I think Gusto just edges it because of the potential, like I've mentioned a couple times now. Number 14, we have Erling Haaland. He is in the squad, barely, because I'm still not sure if I would have Haaland already and just have him on the bench, or potentially as a punt, as like a 30-minute cameo or something for his game, for the game against Newcastle. It doesn't seem like he's going to be fit, but it's also nice to just have him in the squad. You don't really need to have any other striker, but there is potentially some things you can do with that final striker spot. So I'm a little bit unsure about the final striker spot, but also I know that Holland is going to be in the Wildcard draft next week for Game Week 22. He's going to be back fit and available to play for Burnley at home, Brentford away, Everton at home, and then the double game week in 2025. And they don't even blank in Game Week 26 either, Man City. So Holland is going to be essential and basically the number one pick, I think, in Game Week 22. So might as well just have him in the squad already and save yourself the transfer. But there is a case to be made to go with a punt for 1 week, whether that is Alvarez and go from Alvarez to Holland like I did last week basically. Alvarez drops out, or if it's going with someone like Tony, or if it's going with Solanke because you're still not sure about who you're going to drop out of the striker position basically. Yeah, those are the players that have dropped out as well, Solanke and Alvarez, and I'm going to talk about at the end of the video. But first we got to talk about number 15, and that is still Jarrod Bowen. There is a caveat here, and that is the fact that he is potentially injured for this game week. We're not sure, and this is obviously the main game week to have him in as well against Sheffield United away. So yeah, I think this is it really depends if he's back fit or not. That is really what is deciding if Bowen is a good player to have or not. I think on a wildcard you sort of have more flexibility when it comes to bringing in Bowen. I wouldn't bring him in if I was on using just a free transfer. I think it's too risky now with this injury. But I have Bowen in my own team as well since I wildcarded last week, and as you can see from the Game Week 20 draft, that is basically my draft or my squad currently. I think as someone that has him already, I'm going to start him and just have faith in him recovering in these 2 weeks before the game comes around. But we don't really have the information just yet if he's out for a long time or if he's out for a little bit, or if he's even out in general. Maybe he just got a small knock and he's already back fully fit. But yeah, we'll wait and see about that one. But I think the Sheffield United match is just too good to pass up on. I might even captain him still, even though he is an injury doubt, because I think he's either going to play like 90 minutes or he's not going to play at all. He seems like David Moyes usually is the type of player who either plays a player or he just leaves him out entirely, as it proved now with Paqueta as well, who got injured. That's also the other thing with Bowen. His quality drops down a bit without Paqueta. That goes for the whole of the West Ham team as well. His point potential drops down a little bit if Paqueta's out as well. So that's another slight issue, I guess, with picking a West Ham midfielder currently. But I just think the upside for this upcoming game week especially is too good to pass up. But there are some other players that you could potentially have in this position as well, which we'll talk about now towards the end of the video with the dropped players as well. As you can see, we have 4 names in green: Alfie Doughty, Diogo Jota, Joao Pedro, and Holland. They have all come into the team and they weren't there last week, and that means 4 players have dropped out as well. And they are the following players. Number 2 from last week was actually Solanke. I was really sold on Solanke last week. Played against Spurs in a pretty easy fixture in terms of scoring goals because Spurs are leaky defensively. And Solanke had chance after chance after chance, and he missed and he missed and he missed. And that's not really the reason that I've dropped him. It's not the fact that I think that he's all of a sudden become like a Darwin type of player who doesn't score his chances. It's more the fact that he also had to leave with a knock for that game. He wasn't featured in the past game for Bournemouth. He wasn't even in the squad. So I'm not 100% sure about Solanke being fully fit to play. Bournemouth also have some pretty tough fixtures coming up. And I do think just the money saved from going from Solanke to Joao Pedro is worth it. So Solanke is still in consideration, especially if there are news that he is fully fit. Then I think he's a really good player to own still. I still have a lot of faith in Solanke. Probably not going to sell him myself in my own team currently. But yeah, just a slight injury doubt, and also just Bournemouth having tougher fixtures now as well just makes me leave him out. There's also the thing that Bournemouth have the double game week coming up at some point in the postponed match from Game Week 17. We don't know yet when that is going to be added, but especially I think that's against Luton, so I don't think that's going to be added in game 25, and Luton probably double against Liverpool. So it seems like that's going to be more in the future, in like game 28, 29 and beyond, probably. So I think we can go with Solanke for now, go without Solanke for now, but yeah, I'm very unsure about that. I really like Solanke as a pick in general, and I would be really hesitant to sell him if I had him, which I do. But on a wildcard, I probably would downgrade him to Joao Pedro just to save that money and have the money to spare to get Salah back in eventually in the squad. So yeah, Solanke drops out for that reason. Salah obviously drops out because he's gone for African Cup of Nations. If you're on a wildcard now, yeah, you basically just drop Salah and you bring him back in for potentially around the same price you sold him, because he's going to drop in price throughout the game weeks now, especially if Egypt look good and go further in the cup. People are going to be really tired of Salah and sell him after not having him for a couple of game weeks, even though for each passing game week he's going to be more and more important to have, I think, Salah, because it's going to be closer and closer to that game week 24 25 mark when they have Burnley at home, and then the double game week most likely in 25. So yeah, but Salah for now, especially with the next 3 game weeks in mind, in particular 21, 22, 23, he's probably not going to play in either of those 3 game weeks, and that means that you should probably sell him and just use the funds for other players, and then look for a way to bring him back for game week 24 and beyond potentially. Alvarez again drops out because Holland is in the squad. You could have Alvarez for one more game week, but it's also against Newcastle away, so I'm not sure if that's like the best fixture. De Bruyne is also back, so who knows if Alvarez is going to play the whole match as well. It's a bit different compared to last week when Alvarez played against Sheffield United at home. But as you can see from the rankings from last week, he was 13th pick last week as well, because I was really unsure about Alvarez in my squad as well last week. I ended up going with him. He got a goal against Sheffield United, which was nice enough. But my other option, which was having Ivan Toney instead, in particular for this game week, game 21, and then starting Palmer, which I didn't do with my own team, that would have been a better choice last week for my weekly wildcard draft. But yeah, Alvarez drops out because his playing time is going to be diminished. The next fixture isn't that good either. And then when City get those good fixtures, he's going to be a pretty big rotation risk with Holland back, De Bruyne back, and Doku back, and pretty much everyone back, and Foden playing so well that he is currently. So yeah, Alvarez drops out. But I did mention Ivan Toney. He's another player that I might consider having for Holland. Just downgrade Holland to Toney, and you'll still have money in the bank to go from Toney to Holland next game week. I just like the punt on Toney for 1 week, potentially as a captain against Nottingham Forest at home in game 21. That is what I'm sort of tempted with my own team as well, just to have him for 1 week punt. But I wish I'd done that on the wildcard. I'm just really regretting that, especially with the 18 points from Palmer on my bench last week. Still haunts me to this day that I didn't go with the Toney upfront choice on the wildcard in game 20. But so yeah, maybe that's something you should do for game 21, just for the upside, especially if you really like Toney as a captain's pick. I think you could go with him rather than Holland and just do the transfer of Toney to Holland. But that is basically down to if you want to captain Toney or not, I think. Because I think if you're just having Toney for 1 game week just to play him and then sell him without captaining him, I don't think it's worth it. But if you think it's the best captaincy option now, go for it. But currently, I think Bowen, if he's fit, is a better captain, potentially. And then Palmer as well is also potentially a better captain. So I don't know. But you could go with the punt on Toney as well for that pick. White, I did mention already when it comes to him versus Gusto. I think it's pretty close, but I just ended up going with Gusto in the end. So that's pretty much the squad, and a couple more players that I have considered for this team as well. Yeah, even if you're not on wildcard, you can have useful information from this, from just the players that are most important to have currently in your squad. As you can see from this as well, I think Foden and Jota are basically, and Bowen potentially, are like the main guys I think you should target for your replacements for Salah and Son. That could change. There are some other players. Pascal Gross has gotten a lot of traction lately. Pedro Neto is someone that I'm also really considering, especially for the cheap price. Garnacho, if you really want to have the extra money available as well. There are some other good picks. Olise, if he was back fit, he would be really nice, but he's out injured now for a couple of weeks or potentially a month. So yeah, that's gonna make his value basically diminish entirely. So yeah, there are a lot of good midfield options currently. I think Richarlison is another one that I haven't actually mentioned. He was really close to getting into the squad rather than Bowen. If we get news about Bowen before the deadline, then definitely Richarlison would be the one that I would replace him with. I think he has some really good fixtures, but with Timo Werner coming in, not so sure about him playing 90 minutes as much as I thought before Timo Werner came in. And also just long term, I don't know. I don't trust Richarlison for some reason. He's just been a troll for forever, basically. But he's been really good the last few game weeks, so I think he's still a really good pick. And potentially you could pick him over Bowen, and potentially the striker option as well with Tony or potentially even Alvarez for one more game week you could have instead of Holland. But yeah, those are some of my thoughts for this week Wildcard draft. And with that, I'm going to leave you with this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.